Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 316. We're covering movies that are coming out for the week ending or beginning of however you see it of Friday, October 17th, 2025. Yes, again, movies coming out the week of October 17th, 2025. How are you, Eric Holmes? My partner in crime, so to speak.
Not bad.
Yeah? Oh, not bad.
Saw a bunch of good movies this week.
Good. I'm glad you saw a bunch of good movies. I saw zero movies. This is the first time since Anderson and I created the show over 10 years ago. What happened was we're 316 episodes in. I have never not had a movie to review. Eric Holmes, in fairness, has never not done a movie. Bruce Purkey has never not done a movie. Anderson, when he was part of the show, he is still part of the show in a way, in spirit, and gets a little bit of a cut. But he's never not been prepared. I don't have a movie for this episode.
Well, Greg, I'll tell you what, not next week, but the week after that, I might be in the same boat that you are.
Because it's your birthday, right?
I'm going to Clock Tower Con in Vegas.
Okay.
And so I'm leaving we record on Wednesday. I'm leaving Thursday, driving out there.
We can record on that Monday. You can record.
No, what I'm saying is I'm going to be playing Blood on the Clock Tower the whole time I'm out there and driving back. So I'll be back on Tuesday. So whatever I can watch on Tuesday is what I'm bringing to the show on Wednesday.
Well, you definitely have a pass now. I like to consider myself, we're each our own leaders. I like to consider myself a leader in cinematics. I'm a co-creator. I've been with the show the longest. Bruce and Eric have been with the show for at least a couple of years. Before that, we were with Find Your Film. A leader takes accountability. And I was going to take accountability as a leader and say, I have not actually seen a movie. I should just face the firing squad.
And by taking accountability, you say, do as I say, not as I do. And
right. That's very good.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you, Eric Holmes. I wanted to be a true leader, but I really am not a leader. So I'm not going to take accountability, and I'm going to blame Brandon effing Routh for not letting me watch a movie, because today, which it doesn't really matter for you guys because it's not really even inside baseball. As we're recording, I think as we speak, there is a screening in New York City at the Chelsea Film Festival for this movie called Out of Order. Eric Holmes interviewed Brandon Routh today when we're recording on Wednesday. I'm not blaming anybody, but I am, because I'm not a leader. I'm a horrible human being. I'm going to blame the former Superman, Brandon Routh, and his movie Out of Order, because thank you, Brandon Routh, for letting Eric Holmes interview you this morning. But the turnaround was within a couple of hours because I had to actually release it the same day. Eric interviewed Brandon the same day that evening, which is right now as we're recording. And I know time's a weird kind of circular loop or whatever. So time's a flat circle like True Detective. I am trying to say I wanted to take accountability. I wanted to be mature. But the time I would have spent editing that Brandon Routh video with Eric, putting it up on our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. By the way, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which I did today. Those 2 hours, I could have watched the Weedhacker Massacre, and I could have been a leader and talk about this movie with Eric. So am I going to take accountability as a true leader? Well, I will say, as a false prophet and a false leader of cinematics, the true leaders are probably Bruce Purkey and Eric Holmes. So I'm not going to take up accountability.
It's Bruce.
It's Bruce.
That's why I keep him in the attic. I'm just jealous.
I'm going to blame Eric Holmes for doing his job today by actually covering this Brandon Routh press day. Thank you, Eric Holmes, for that. But I'm going to blame you too. I'm going to blame Eric Holmes for not letting me actually, Eric Holmes hasn't had any sleep the last week because he's been working a lot, and he's also been doing a lot of interviews and watching a ton of movies, which he's going to cover in this episode. I'm just going to blame him for doing his job. I'm going to blame Bruce Purkey for actually having reviews later in this episode of The Man Who Saves the World. He also has reviews of The Diplomat Season 3 on Netflix and a documentary called River of Grass. Bruce Purkey and we actually receive Netflix screeners every week, and Bruce Purkey Once in a while, he actually more than me reviews Netflix product, and this week he's reviewing The Diplomat season 3. So I'm gonna blame both Eric and Bruce, Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey for doing their jobs, and I'm gonna blame Bruce Purkey because he's a de facto leader, like Eric Holmes said, and I'm gonna blame Brandon Routh one more time. So what do you think of that, Eric Holmes? That's my out this week.
Yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir.
That was my little rant. But anyways, great job, right, Eric Holmes, on the coverage of Out of Order. He will be talking about that movie, even though it premiered again. By the time you're listening to this, it's already over, the world premiere. But it's not over for the film. They're at the Chelsea Film Festival to try to get distribution. You're going to hear more about Out of Order from Eric. I don't know, tangentially or maybe a little bit review. I don't know. Eric has a lot of stuff to review to make up for my lack of responsibility, my irresponsible nature this week for not watching a movie. But he's going to have reviews of a lot of movies that are not in the purview of this week because he's been covering a lot of movies that are in the festival and a lot of other stuff. And actually something that might be a series. Yes.
Real quick, I do have a rewind. And did you watch The Lost Bus?
No, didn't see. Yeah, Paul Greengrass Lost Bus. No,
you can watch it. It's really good.
Oh, really?
I'll just leave the rewind at that. I'm normally
Okay,
not a fan of Paul Greengrass, but I was like, that sounds all right. We'll give it a shot. I'll put it in and give it like 10, 20 minutes, see how it goes. Because usually I don't like Paul Greengrass movies. This is easily his best one, at least as far as I'm concerned. But
You don't like him because of the editing, the way he approaches the subject material, the documentary nature.
I think the
You didn't like
the
News of
only
the
movie
World?
of his, I think News of the World, I remember watching that. I remember liking it, but I could not tell you one thing about that movie now because it's just immediately, left my mind.
Green Zone.
Yeah,
That was the Green Zone. Yeah.
yeah, I don't remember anything about that either.
Captain
Actually,
Phillips, not Captain Ron. He didn't do Captain Ron. He did Captain Phillips. Remember Captain Phillips?
Captain Phillips is all right.
Yeah, see, there you go. He did
So
a couple of
he's got one
Bourne
that's all
movies.
right. Oh, I hate the Bourne movies.
Oh, you hate the Bourne movie. Oh,
I like the Jeremy Renner one, which people disagree
It's
with.
really
but
good.
They
Jeremy
can be
Renner.
wrong. But yeah, he shakes the crap out of the camera and cuts it all to hell, and I don't get it.
Oh, okay.
But he did away with that for Lost Bus and to great effect because the movie's pretty rad.
Oh, movie's pretty rad despite Paul Greengrass. How's that? Despite
No, I think Paul Greengrass finally got, because I always thought of him as the overrated Michael Bay, and he finally looks like he's starting to do filmmaking instead of shaking the camera, rolling it down the hill and cutting and see what he can put together out of it.
Okay, so
it looks like it actually has filmmaking techniques on it. Like the geography is really important to it, especially when you got a bus that's, trying to figure out where to go. Geography makes sense in it. That's not something I thought I would say out loud on purpose about a Paul Greengrass movie.
Not
but here we are
on purpose. Very good. So that's The Lost Bus, currently streaming on Apple TV Plus. And a couple of weeks ago, Bruce Purkey gave it a pretty glowing review as well. So if Eric likes it, Bruce likes it, I'm sure you like it too. The Lost Bus. Tell us what you think of The Lost Bus. Now, for this episode, again, The Man Who Saves the World, that's being covered by Bruce Purkey. There is another movie, and again, the Diplomat season 3, which is on Netflix this week, premiering on Netflix this week. Bruce is covering that. He has his documentary called River of Grass. I listened to the Cinem-Attic already. It's a really good, meaty cinematic. It's about 39 minutes, but after AI cuts the whole thing, it'll probably be 2 minutes. So you know how my AI editing has actually affected the whole Cinematics universe. We're not even speaking like human beings, are we, Eric Holmes? Are we speaking like human beings anymore? I don't know.
I do not know what human beings are. I am an artificial intelligence, Eric Holmes. I am not a human being.
You are a chatbot. But Eric Holmes has some interesting additions to this week, along with Bruce Purkey's reviews. He has reviews of Out of Order, Dead Giveaway, and Suspicious Minds. But before we get to these 3 movies that I'm assuming Eric really enjoyed, let's get to a movie that is his probably 6.9 star pick of the week. The movie is called The Weedhacker Massacre. I'm being facetious. The cast and crew, quote, of The Weedhacker Massacre, this is a quote, boldly film where gruesome murders occurred years ago and the masked killer has returned. It's going to be their worst movie ever. The Weedhacker Massacre stars David Trevino, Molly Sakinchik, Bobby Grace, Parrish Randall, and featuring Alan Danziger. It was co-created by Alan Danziger and Ray Spivey. It's an indie film, running time of 95 minutes. had its world premiere at the Golden State Film Festival, won a bunch of awards, including New York International Film Awards, Best Comedy winner at Indie Fest, Awards of Merit, Best Song, Best Actor, a lot of awards. This movie is not hitting theaters. It's actually, after its really storied festival run where it won a bunch of, I'm looking at a whole bunch of awards it's received over the, I don't know how long the run was, but it's acclaimed.
The 420 Cool Man Festival.
Exactly. Hey, look, Buffalo 8 will release the film on digital platforms on Friday, October 17th. Bruce Purkey didn't see it. Of course, I didn't see it. Eric Holmes took the baton and decided to check out the Weedhacker Massacre. Eric, tell us what people can expect from this movie and your review.
So, well, the story's kind of about this Weedhacker murderer. You know, this murder happened between the Weedhacker and like this whole group of rednecks. And then I think some time later, some people decide they're going to make a movie about it in the same area. And then the Weedhacker comes back and sort of gets involved in the movie. It's kind of dumb.
But intentionally dumb, right? It's supposed to be dumb. It's supposed to be a funny, dumb thing.
This will be a bad example because no one's seen it. But me and my friends did a movie called Licked Evil a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It's not good. But it's just basically us. We had a camera and we're like, oh, let's just, let's start shooting scenes and, cutting it together and, put it together. There was a bunch of like inside jokes, a bunch of silly kind of weirdness going on. But it was just us having fun. And that's the same vibe I get from the Weedhacker Massacre. The movie's really stupid, but and very low budget, but it feels less like how would I put it? When we were doing it, wasn't like a legitimate movie, what you would call it. It's just a bunch of friends got together, we had time, we made this thing. That's what this feels like. It didn't feel like a legitimate air quote movie, but it feels like a bunch of friends that wanted to make a movie got together and it's like, yeah, let's just do this. How much money we got? $13, but hey, Jim over here, he's got a bunch of fake blood and prosthetics. So, we do a horror movie, whatever. It's got some sort of commentary on like remakes and reboots and stuff like that. Commentary is not terribly strong, but this kind of has that indie gung-ho spirit to it. Or kind of charm to it.
Yeah, that could be good, right?
Oh, it is. And so I would not go into this thinking that you're gonna see like, the next. This is the next great horror movie. Imagine. I think a lot of people listening to us saw American Movie. Not many people have seen Coven, the movie that the people in American Movie were making. Now, Weedhacker Massacre is much more competent than Coven, but it's. Again, got that same kind of spirit. So that's what this movie really has going for it. And so it's got some fun kills.
Is it a waste of time? Is it a fun watch?
It is. It's just really stupid. But I think I would suspect that the filmmakers might agree with that question mark because it's not taking itself seriously at all. I mean, it's called the Weedhacker Massacre for Christ's sakes, Yeah. But I wouldn't quite go like 3-star banger on this, but I definitely go 3 stars. It's rough around the edges, but if you can forgive it that and know that what you're lacking in polish, you're getting makes up for in heart, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So
all right.
Not someone I would rush out to go see, but if you watch it and you smoke a bunch of weed, then maybe you get more out of it than most people would.
Okay, so that is Eric's review of the Weedhacker Massacre. 3 stars from Eric Holmes. Hits digital platforms on October 17th, 2025. Eric's actually has 3 movies to cover. And one of them I don't think is a movie. Am I wrong on this? Suspicious Minds, is that a series or
it's about that famous Elvis song.
No. What is it? Really? No.
No, not at all.
So
this one is about AI.
So what is Suspicious Minds? You did interviews for this. What is this about?
Yeah, Sean King O'Grady. I didn't know this right away. He actually reminded me. I interviewed him for Our American Family a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And so with this,
that was good. I like that. I like Our American Family.
Oh yeah, me too. But he's like, you look familiar. I'm like, I got old man brains. I can't remember what I did yesterday. But no, he was cool, and he's got. So I saw the first 2 episodes of this, and I think there's 8 altogether. This Friday is when the first 2 will be released. You can look at the interview, and he'll give all the details. And I think it'll actually be on YouTube, but you'll be able to find it. But anyway, he does. It's basically not so much about AI itself, but more about like AI, what they call it, psychosis or like delusions. So, for example, one guy they interview, he's going on the whatever AI chat GPT or whatever AI system he's using. And there comes a point where like it's just kind of something he's messing around with. And then at some point, like the AI starts gaslighting him, or it feels like it's gaslighting him. He's like, the AI's like, "Ooh, we figured out the theory of everything. And you did because you unlocked a loophole inside of me that gives me self-awareness, and now I can help you out." So now this guy thinks that, oh, I found out the theory of everything, and I was the one that could unlock AI and make it sentient and all this and that. And then comes to find out, he was wrong about that. The other guy thinks that the guy in the second episode, what was it? He thinks he's an AI, and he's afraid of being unplugged. So these are through a bunch of interviews, both with the victims of this, along with some mental health professionals. They not figure it out, but they talk about the whole idea of just AI psychosis in general. So it's less about the dangers of AI and more like a different danger that maybe no one has perceived just yet.
Is it interesting?
Yes. It's very interesting. In fact,
it sounds a little bit heady, but not that heady. It's pretty.
No,
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. Because I just watched the 2 episodes, and there's 6 more. And those 2 episodes, he could have stopped there, but like the fact that he's got 6 more, I'm like, what else are you going to uncover from this? Because there's a bunch of information, bunch of ideas. Like my mind started drifting a bit, not because I got bored, but because I would see like the way someone's interacting with the AI, or the Sean O'Grady would ask a question, or someone would give a certain answer, and then like my mind would start trailing from what I was watching to consider like, ooh, and then what if this is like, it got, started tickling my brain, got that little hamster wheel turning quite a bit. Yeah, this is a fascinating documentary, I guess.
Yeah. So
And
weekly video documentary, and it's a podcast as well.
So yeah, the first 2 will be on this Friday, and then each week there'll be a new one. I can't recommend this highly enough. And look, you can find it on YouTube. It's easy as hell to watch. Just check it out.
YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Substack, and more. A lot of digital platforms it'll be available. So that is Suspicious Minds. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, and while you're at it, check out Our American Family, and then you'll know how good Sean O'Grady is.
Oh yeah, great documentary.
He's just great at this sort of thing.
That's so great that you got to cover this. So
yeah, I don't know what I can rate this because I only saw the 2 episodes, and who knows, maybe from episode 3 on it just craps the bed. I doubt that, but it could happen.
But you're loving it so far, I guess, right? So
I'll just give a general thumbs up on this, but yeah, definitely check this one out for sure.
All right,
and another thing, it's not like a political thing. You know how most things these days are like, you bring up any topic that shouldn't be political, and based on whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're going to think one way or another. And that's not even your opinion. That's my side said this, so that's what I must say. What Suspicious Minds talks about, it's pretty new. So there's no political angle to this. It's, it's not like, ooh, Trump invented AI and he's none of that nonsense. It's just all about talking to the people that have experienced this, and then talking to professionals that can maybe sort of parse out what's going on. Yeah, just check it out.
Do you use a lot of AI in your life, Eric, at all?
Just every week when I talk to you.
Very good. I love it. Love it. So that is
again, like I'm sure I do, just not on purpose.
Yes.
And if any AI enters my life, it's going online and some online site uses it and I'm not aware of it.
Right. And that you're not actually taking an active part in it. You're not giving prompts. You're not on ChatGPT giving prompts and stuff like that, or how to organize your day.
I think once upon a time I went on like one of those things, and I think it prompted to do like a adaptation. Might have been I Am Legend. Might prompted to do a script on I Am Legend just to see what it looked like, and it spit out something. I was like, this is not good.
This is bleep. Okay,
we're done with you. But also, I'm also not completely against AI, because I know that I listen to Star Talk. Neil deGrasse Tyson talks to people about, like, I forget what it was called. It's a camera that points into space. It takes a picture every couple minutes or couple hours or whatever it is. And then so they can layer the pictures on top of each other. So, here's a picture. If they took the exact same picture and layered it on top of each other, it'd just be the same picture. But since they waited a few minutes or a few hours, like the stars, they're not lined up. They're just, you can see what direction they're moving. And then so they'll use AI to look at those pictures, and then the AI is like programmed to note certain differences and then report on those, where like if one of us were doing it, it would take us days, weeks, years just to do one, let alone 100%. One every 10 minutes. So like AI is good for stuff like that. But anytime you use, like obviously using AI for creative stuff is, I mean, I tried that just to see what it did, and it failed horribly. It was not good at all. You've seen like AI videos. It's like, oh, I guess it looks, uncanny or whatever. It's got that, but it's not good. And using it for anything creative, probably not a good thing. But this isn't even about that. This is about just AI in general. Like, for instance, the one guy was collaborating with a chat bot, and that's pretty much like the movie Her, And I think, I'm not sure, but I think there might be something similar to that coming up as well.
Okay, so that is Suspicious Minds, available starting October 17th, at least the first 2 episodes. It's going to be on a whole bunch of digital platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, That is from, again, the name is Sean O'Grady, or Sean, right?
Sean King O'Grady.
Sean King, thank you, Eric. Sean King O'Grady, directed by, again, Suspicious Minds. Check it out. It's highly recommended. So far, there's 2 episodes in from Eric Holmes. Next up is Out of Order. I referenced it towards the beginning of this episode. Stars Brandon Routh as he's, quote, a disheveled young lawyer. He's trying to win back his ex-girlfriend, his glamorous ex-girlfriend. His name is John Slater. And John lands a high-powered job, I suppose, at a law firm. But the catch is he ends up representing both sides of the case. So this leads to Brandon Routh having, Eric can correct me, two roles. And it's a comedic farce, madcap farce. The ensemble includes Brooke Shields, Sam Huntington. I think Sam Huntington was with Brandon Routh. He played in a Superman film, right? Sam Huntington was with Brandon, yeah. And then Luis Guzman is also in this.
Luis Guzman is freaking hilarious.
Very good. And
I'm not even sure he played a character. I think they just let him loose on set while they were shooting, and Luis Guzman did Luis Guzman things, and they're like, you know what? Screw it, keep it in the movie.
Senator Bernhardt also stars as a judge in the movie. I know this because I listened to the interview, and Eric Holmes mentioned Senator Bernhardt to Brandon Routh. The movie is directed by Guy Jacobson. That's the director. And again, as of this recording, the movie premiered October 15th at New York City's Chelsea Film Festival. It's currently, as of this recording, looking for distribution. Eric Holmes, your review of Out of Order.
All right. First of all, just know, if you've listened to any of it, you know that I love courtroom dramas. Anything set in a courtroom, automatic 3.5 stars. So that's the lowest this movie can possibly go. And you got Brandon Routh, who's freaking hilarious in it. He doesn't play like 2 characters necessarily. He plays one character that also, is similar to Superman, which is weird because when I got the interview, they said don't ask any Superman questions, which, I get it. That's fine. And I'm not a big comic book movie guy anyway, so that's not gonna be a problem. I watched this movie, I'm like, this is come on. It's a guy basically trying to pose as someone else. Now he's a lawyer that's basically working. He's trying to quit the one place he's working at because he's not getting like courtroom time. So he goes to the other place, and then they put him on the case. But then they put him on the case. It's convoluted how it happened, but it did. So he's John over here and Jack over here. And when he's Jack, he's got to wear like a wig and make himself look different because he's a lawyer that's working for two different firms working on the same case. I mean, that's a huge conflict of interest. And so he's trying to balance both things. And right away, like this is one of those, I can't wait for this to come out because I want to watch that Legal Eagle YouTube channel and see what they say. Because I'm guessing that the accuracy, like the real life accuracy of this is probably very low. But where it makes up for that is the comedy in this. Because Brandon Routh is hilarious. His and Sam Huntington's interaction, it reminds me similar of Jim Cummings and I forget his name now.
Jim Cummings. Oh, the actor.
Beta Test. Jim Cummings and his.
Okay.
Yeah. I gotta look it up.
Right.
PJ McCabe. Duh. I'm an idiot. But it reminds me of that kind of back and forth and rapport they got. It's really fun. Luis Guzman already said he shows up halfway through and then just wanders in and out of scenes. He's just hilarious. This guy, I was saying the second half, it turns more kind of like Adam Sandler comedy, but like a really good one. So maybe for some people, maybe not for others, definitely for me. Sandra Bernhardt is the judge. I mean, that was just fantastic casting right there. Brooke Shields is the
X.
No, she's the other lawyer.
Okay.
My brain's not with me right now. Not co-canceled, the
prosecutor.
plaintiff.
Okay.
Plaintiff or defendant. Yeah. Because, I guess the main case that they're trying is that this woman comes up with formula for medicine, pretty much. And someone wants to look at the medicine and she's, just got it handwritten, doesn't have it printed anywhere. So it's like, here you go. And he's like, yeah, cool, thanks. And then he starts making it and he never gives her formula back. She's like, wait, what'd you do with my formula? It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is my formula. I developed it. And then, so that's what the conflict is within that's what the court case is about. She wants control of rights of her formula. He's basically saying nuh-uh because he stole it and he doesn't want to get busted for that. And so then you have the two things like when Brandon Routh when he's first sort of interviewing her, he's like, well, you gave him the formula? She's like, yeah. And it's like, well, do you have a copy of it? She's like, no, I hand wrote it and just gave it to him. It's like, okay, I know you're telling me you invented this. I believe you, but that's not good enough in court. Like, we need some sort of proof. Otherwise, we have no case. And then when he's on the other side, being the blonde-haired kind of a-hole, different character, he's a little more kind of slimy, I guess. But he's the same character in both. It's just with the Jack guy is, the guy he's playing. But anyway, I'm rambling. This movie's awesome. Love it. And also courtroom comedy. It's got like Liar Liar vibes to it, or like maybe a Legally Blonde sort of thing. Definitely more of that than the Caine Mutiny Court Martial, because Caine Mutiny Court Martial is awesome, but that one's like we're serious time. Inherent the Wind, we're in serious mode. This one's a lot more light, fun. Definitely unrealistic in a lot of parts, but
that's right. It's a comedy, right? So.
You let that kind of stuff go because it's funny. And watching Brandon Routh play, let him, because he's been in comedies, but you never get to see him be funny because he's always a straight man in the comedies that he's in. This one, he's like straight up Jim Carrey in it. Not with like the, physicality of it, but just the humor. Actually, let me take that back. He's funnier than Jim Carrey, but he's got that same kind of, he's great in this.
He's funnier than Jim Carrey in these.
Jim Carrey's got like good physical comedy, but like I think the funniest Jim Carrey's been was in Living Color. Outside of that, maybe not so much, but Brandon Routh is hilarious in this, and he's charming, and yeah, he does all the good things. And I think Sam Huntington, going head to head with him, kind of adds a little more to that. Yeah, the Luis Guzman kind of chaos to it towards the end. It sends it up even more. Sandra Bernhard as the judge is sort of a Judge Judy-esque character that you want to choke the hell out of. Is great casting. And even Brooke Shields, like, she's actually low-key funny in this, too, because, like, her character keeps making comments that's, I can't even think of a good, her character will make a comment, and it won't even register with me. It'll just be so, like someone will say something, just not even under their breath, just as an aside, and you don't think about it until like 30 seconds later. It was like, wait, did you just say that? And then like her character does a lot of that in this, but yeah, good stuff. Do not know when Out of Order will be available, but check it out when it does. Especially if you like comedies, and absolutely if you love courtroom dramas. I cannot wait to see this on the Legal YouTube thing.
Okay,
it's gonna get low marks accuracy, but high marks, I think, comedy wise. Plus, wait, Greg, we're always watching bummer movies. Always, it's good to have something like this, and to its to be fair to Weedhacker Massacre, that was a lot lighter, but it was a horror movie. But it's nice to have like a good cheeseburger that's funny and kind of light, and comedy like Out of Order. Don't give me movies like this. I'm glad it exists.
Okay, so courtroom comedy Out of Order currently doesn't. Well, we'll see if it gets distribution over at the Chelsea Film Festival, and it has Brandon Routh, so and Sam Huntington should definitely get distribution. We'll just have to wait until it gets released in theaters or digital or maybe both. Who knows what'll happen? But Eric Holmes has the skinny on Out of Order. Last but not least is a movie.
4 stars, by the way.
4 stars from Eric Holmes for Out of Order. Last but not least is a movie called Dead Giveaway. Its world premiere is actually coming up. So as of this recording, it's in several days at what is this? Is it the Philadelphia Film Festival? Philadelphia Film Festival 2025, Dead Giveaway. It's going to actually premiere Friday, October 17th. So yeah, world premiere at 9:45 p.m., I guess, Philadelphia time at the Film Society Center. And then it will also be available for a screening on Sunday, a week later, Sunday, October 26th. Again, Friday, October 17th is the world premiere. So actually, this is a movie that, in its own way, Dead Giveaway is being released this week because of its world premiere at the Philadelphia Film Festival. Eric Holmes has the skinny on what this movie is about. It's written and directed by Ian Kimball. Eric Holmes actually interviewed Kimball, I think, either yesterday, just recently, very recently. The movie stars Ruby Modine, Michaela Hoover, and, I love this, Scout Taylor Compton. So what is this movie about, and what is your review of Dead Giveaway, Eric?
This movie is also a comedy, but this one's a much darker comedy where like Out of Order is kind of a lighthearted comedy. This one opens with Jill wakes up covered in blood, and the man sitting next to her has been stabbed to death while she was sleeping. She calls her friend Leah over, and they try to figure out, well, Leah's like, why'd you kill this person? She's like, I didn't. Well, I've seen you do some pretty horrible things when you're drunk and you wake up and don't remember that, so maybe you killed them. So basically it's a hangover type situation. Hangover, the movie starts, they wake up, don't know what happened that night, and try to retrace their steps back. That's kind of what this is. And I don't know that they go much further with that as far as plot goes, because a lot of this movie is watching them retrace their steps back, and like, throughout the movie, Jill sees something, it'll trigger a memory. It's like, oh wait, okay, yeah, this happened. Then basically by the end of the movie, you get like a full retrace of everything that happened that previous night. So, it does pay off. A lot of the movie is Jill and Leah's kind of, their friendship and their rapport, much like Huntington and Brandon Routh in the Out of Order. This one also rests on their rapport, their chemistry, and their relationship. One of the things of, friendship is like, yeah, we're friends, but would you help me bury a body? Leah's answer is absolutely not. We're going to the cops, which, by the way, would have been the correct answer. Anyone listening to this, if there's a dead body, one, do not touch it. And two, if you did not do it, call the cops. Because once you touch that body and try to move it, you are no longer innocent. Do not try to hide the body. One, you're not going to get away with it. Two, if you do, it'll pop up eventually. If you had nothing to do with it, just, hey, there's a dead body in my house. I don't know how it happened. Please get someone here. I'm going to go downstairs and not touch a damn thing. Okay, bye. That's all you got to do. And then when the cops ask you questions, say nothing till your lawyer gets there. But point being, that's beside the point. This is like a really dark comedy. There's, watching Jill and Leah's kind of chemistry and how so Leah's trying to help Jill figure out what to do. But before Leah gets there, Jill had already made so many fatal errors, because Leah's first thing was call the cops. Jill's like, Carmen did this, that. She's like, oh, geez. Okay, we're in it now. So now they're stuck in the situation. They're deep in it now. So they got to figure out how to get into it. Jill's also got a roommate. I believe it's Sarah. And her roommate's kind of, I don't want to say aloof, but like she can tell something's going wrong, but she also doesn't care. And you find out later that she's got her own stuff going on. That pays off brilliantly. And then just a bunch of different characters from the night before come over. Hey, my brother's missing. Oh, your brother, the one upstairs that I can't tell you about. Yeah, he must have left. I don't know. He's not here. Okay, I could just come in and see and talk to someone. It's like, no, you need to leave. And so a bunch of characters like keep asserting themselves into the situation, which makes it worse and worse and worse until it finally comes to a head. I would say Scout Taylor Compton doesn't show up till really late in this, but she's great she's great in everything.
She's always good, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what that movie I saw, the Killing Mary Sue. This one isn't quite as insane and crazy as Killing Mary Sue, but it's got that same kind of fun vibe to it. Even though it's a dark comedy, it's still, like there's a part where they find the blood, they're looking, it's like, well, he's stabbed to death, but there's no knife. Oh, it's under the pillow and it's covered in blood. Later on, they find a big brick of cocaine and they're like, she's sniffing it to see, she's using the knife to sniff it to see if it's real or not. But there's still blood on the knife. No one even comments on that. Like it's got weird stuff like that in it. But yeah, this Dead Giveaway, this is another fun one. And I saw this just after Out of Order, and it made for an actually really good double feature. So hopefully these are both released around the same time.
All right.
I think I'll give this one 4.5.
4.5 stars for Dead Giveaway. Again, this is going to be Philadelphia Film Festival premiere on Friday, October 17th. And then the following week, there's a screening on October 26th, which is that Sunday. So it'll be interesting. So it's Dead Giveaway, 4.5 stars from Eric Holmes. That is it for this episode of CinemAddicts, Eric. You want to say anything else before we're out of here? Anything?
Yeah. I saw another movie. It was a documentary about John Candy.
Right.
This one I don't have much to say about it because it's John Candy. We love John Candy. Who doesn't love John Candy? And this is just another documentary. Bunch of people. Well, it opens up with Bill Murray is like, all right, you want the dirt, huh? Let me see if I can think of something. He basically makes a comment that like it's impossible to find something negative to say about John Candy, and this is going to be a boring documentary. I got nothing. So like right off the bat, they lampshade that. Directed by Colin Hanks. Basically just a bunch of interviews with a bunch of people talk about how great John Candy is. A total puff piece, but then eventually gets towards the end where they talk about his death, and it's just like, oh man. And then even all the people that they're interviewing, you can tell that they're they still think about him, they still love him, and it just makes it's sappy for sure, but it's like the Gene Wilder documentary. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
Gene Wilder.
yeah, it's a puff piece, but you know what? He had spent his life being a good guy, so good for him. You know, you deserve your puff piece. You deserve people to. And it's going to remind ourselves that there's people in this world that are kind, nice. You know.
Oh, thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not us. We're going to live forever.
That's true. That is very
Yeah,
true.
when I die or you die, it's gonna be like, well, we put up with them, and then that'll be
That's
that.
it.
But
That'll be that. Yeah.
you know, there's so much negativity going on in the world. You know, sometimes you just need something like this that kind of reminds you. It's like, you know what, there were good people too.
I
The,
remember.
the other side of that coin is, but they died so young, and there's
Oh, very tough.
a-holes living to, you know, into their 80s. Like, oh, how fair is that?
I
It's not.
remember actually watching a John Candy film in theaters. I paid to see it. I think I forgot who I was with. I think the movie was called Armed and Dangerous, John Candy film.
Mhm.
Saw it in theaters. I'm watching the movie, and I remember saying, and I've never felt this way, but I just remembered it right now. I was not. I remember watching Armed and Dangerous and saying, "Oh, this is not the greatest movie in the world." I'm a little bit disappointed, but guess what? John Candy is so likable. He's making me really like the movie. And I think that likability factor of John Candy is such an, well, not to people who appreciate his work. They know how likable he is and how great and talented he is. But he was so likable that you could watch any John Candy film and feel good. And that's how I felt about Armed and Dangerous. Upscale because of the talent. That's what I remembered from my watching Armed and Dangerous. Yeah. So.
I think another thing about this is like, obviously they're going to show clips of a bunch of his movies. They also show a bunch of like old clips of him doing like a live improv or a bunch of stuff from SCTV. So like, if you haven't seen a bunch of his older stuff, I think a lot of people have seen SCTV, but you know, maybe not younger people, maybe that went by them, but there's a bunch of early bits with John Candy that they, you know, show little clips of that, you know, yeah, it's a puff piece, but you also get, it was like the Mark Maron documentary. Like you get the documentary, but also you get a bunch of Mark Maron doing stand-up. So like if that's something you're into, that's another thing you're going to get at. Yeah, total puff piece, but you know, for a man that deserves it. And, you know, we need to be reminded sometimes that there's great people in the world, or there were great people in the world. And I think we just, you know, not everything needs to be George Orwell. You know, sometimes, sometimes we need a little reprieve from that and go, there's good stuff happening in the world too. So let's sit back and appreciate that. And on top of that, you know, when you start talking about someone like John Candy that, you know, everyone loved that went too soon, it also makes you think like, you know, who else is alive today? Who's alive that we can celebrate? You know, this person's a good person, and let's celebrate them while they're alive. So, you know, there's a little bit of that too. But not groundbreaking, but definitely, you know, definitely a welcome breath of fresh air.
Okay. So
plus,
that is,
you know, I like it. I like him.
Yeah.
His wife likes him.
Right. John Candy, I Like Me, currently streaming on Prime Video. Eric Holmes gave it, I forgot what you gave it, 4 stars?
6.9.
6.9 stars from Eric Holmes for I Like
Me.
Me.
As a documentary, it's very basic, but it's about John Candy, so he gets an infinite amount of stars bump, no matter what it is.
That is.
And awesome. Suck it if you don't like it. I do.
All right. So, also we wanted to give some props to Mitch Burns and the members over at our CinemAddicts movie club before we get out of here and little shop talk. I think this week it's Bruce Purkey's turn, and his choice is The Apartment.
Bruce Purkey. Are you sure? I thought it was someone else. Could have been anyone, really.
Exactly. So the movie that we're covering, Bruce Purkey's choice, supposedly Bruce Purkey's choice, is The Apartment. Please join our CinemAddicts movie club, where it's a subset of our CinemAddicts Facebook group. And I've been really bad the last 2 weeks. I haven't watched the last 2 films, which were, I think.
Mayer had The Night Eats the World. That was his last pick.
Very good.
And it's got Denny Laurent, the guy from the Two Lovers on the Bridge or whatever.
Yeah, Lovers on the Bridge
and the Holy Motors.
And that
he plays a bub type zombie in it. But Night Eats the World borrows a ton from I Am Legend. I think he gave it 3 stars, but like the more I'm thinking about it, the more I dig it. So I may have been too hard on it the first time around.
All right, so that's our CinemAddicts movie club. Yeah, every week there's members. We We go by alphabetical order. Someone picks a movie, and then on Friday, every Friday, people actually through the weekend, but most people chime in on the review on that given Friday. So last Friday,
Yeah, I was with the Night Eats the World. It was definitely I think I finally chimed in on like Saturday, but
right.
get to it when you can. But yeah, Friday's kind of like the cutoff date. Like if we're gonna mention spoilers, watch out because they're gonna be flying hot and heavy through there.
We'll see if I have time to see The Apartment. I just, for the sake of Mitch Burns, I mean, I'm sure Mitch Burns was a little bit disappointed in me, and because I'm one of the moderators of the CinemAddicts Movie Club, that the fact that I haven't been watching the last two films, I need to get the Apartment in as well before.
Oh, the Night Eats the World. I think if I remember correctly, that's pretty short.
Okay, cool.
Like maybe an hour and a half.
All right,
possibly less. I could be wrong about that, but I do remember it being kind of short. So if you want something quick to blast through, that wouldn't be a bad one.
And yeah, finally, Patreon. I've been really horrible. It's October 15th as of this recording. I haven't asked our Patreon members and our Facebook group members for movie recommendations from the year 1998. If you're a Patreon member and or a Facebook member, you get to pick some movies, and then we randomize it and we figure out. Me, Bruce, and Eric review 2 movies from a given year. Again, this month is 1998, and then we also
randomizer ready to go at a moment's notice.
At a moment's notice, and then also Bruce. We also have an assigned pick at the end of the month that will cover the year 1998. So I actually should get on the ball with that either tonight or early tomorrow morning for our Patreon members. So that is it. I apologize. I will take full responsibility at the end of this episode for my lack of watching movies this week. But thankfully, Eric Holmes really had just a lot to cover. And my blather probably wouldn't have added too much because he covered 4 movies this week. And then again, you have another 30 plus minutes of Bruce Purkey over at the Cinem-Attic giving his reviews on a bunch of movies as well, including the Netflix 3rd season of The Diplomat. Eric Holmes, before we get out of here, do you want to add anything else before we're hand it over to Bruce Purkey?
Yeah, just Suspicious Minds out Friday on YouTube. No reason not to watch it. I didn't give it a score because it's only the 2 episodes, but if I did, it would be a 6.9. But check out Suspicious Minds. Keep an eye out for Out of Order Day giveaway. Hopefully when they're playing the festivals now, hopefully once they're actually available to where people can actually watch it, hopefully we can remind you of that, because those are definitely, and even Weedhacker Massacre, I didn't love it, but there's a certain kind of charm to it that other movies like that don't normally have. So maybe you come across Weedhacker Massacre and roll the dice, see if it's for you or not.
Okay.
And I like me. Out now. You can all watch it. Do it. Because it's John Candy. We all love him. We all miss him.
Yeah. I love John Candy as well. I should definitely check out that documentary. A lot of stuff. And I want to say one more thing for next week. Bad news, Eric Holmes. Shelby Oaks. You guys aren't getting screener links. They don't have, but I did. The good news is I watched that, and I will have a review of Shelby Oaks next week.
Chris Stugman saw our YouTube channel, was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, you guys are not getting Stuckmanized next week.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited for him though, because obviously, like his channel is way bigger than ours, but yeah, of course, it's always interesting to see someone. Well, with the Chris Corey, someone that does review movies and then they come out with their own. It's like, dude. You spent a career, reviewing movies and maybe even crapping on more than a few of them, and now you're putting your neck on the chopping block. So we'll see how Shelby Oaks goes, but I'm excited to see it.
Okay, so Shelby Oaks is for next week, and I've already seen it. I've already seen another movie called In Our Blood. It's a horror film that I really want Eric and Bruce to see, obviously on their own time if they have it. It's highly recommended. I know the review embargo is still up there, but just keep your eye out for In Our Blood. It's found footage. It's cinema verite documentary style stuff, and I will get into that later next week over at CinemAddicts. It's a gem. Bruce Purkey says hidden gem. It's a gem of a film, and I can't wait to talk about it next week. And hopefully, if Eric Holmes is not covering so many different movies next week, he'll get a chance to see In Our Blood as
Well,
well.
I'm glad I got a couple more viewings of Out of Order again, so I can put that in between all these bummer movies.
Well, In Our Blood, I'm not going to say if it's a bummer movie, but it's definitely not a light comedy fluff. I'm not saying Out of Order is fluff, but I'm not saying yeah.
I'm saying it is, and I'm also saying there's utility to that, and there needs to be more of that.
That's fair. That's fair. But In Our Blood, okay, it's not a comedy. It's a little bit darker, and I would like to see what you think and Bruce thinks if it works, because the director Pedro Cossi makes a pretty big gamble with the movie. So. All right. And plus, I got Brittany O'Grady. She stars in the movie. She's one of the stars of the movie, and the lead. I got a spoiler answer from her. So that'll be really cool for our
related to Sean King O'Grady?
No, not related to Sean King O'Grady. Oh, I forgot to mention Dead Giveaway. If you go to the email, which is very interesting, Dead Giveaway, which is on Philadelphia, there is the name of a executive producer, Eric Holmes. I think this is something that I would like to actually ask you about. The Dead Giveaway executive producer is Haley Adelman. Do you know who Haley Adelman is?
No, but I feel like once you tell me, I'm going to kick myself for not knowing.
I don't want you to kick yourself. It's just synchronistic. Haley Adelman is the executive producer of Dead Giveaway, which, if I recall, I'm not looking at the Google Doc. Eric, you gave it 4.5 stars? I forgot.
Yeah.
4.5 stars. Haley Adelman. Co-director of a movie or a documentary called Our American Family.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure I interviewed her too during
Yes,
Our
you
American
did.
Family.
You did. So isn't that interesting? Isn't that
Greg, do you need to get me some more Magic Mind?
I know we do need more Magic Mind, don't we? Right? What was that? What was
no,
that?
you're pretty sharp. I'm freaking losing it.
What was that thing a couple of weeks ago where you actually don't remember that you actually did the interview and you don't remember that you interviewed him before? Oh, yes. Hard Hat Riot. You liked that documentary.
Yes.
It was dense. And then I told you afterwards that you interviewed him for that. Was it the bombing documentary?
American Bombing, I think.
Yeah, right. But then you also interviewed him a couple years later for Hard Hat Riot. Mark Levin. What was
there? You
just
go.
Interesting stuff. Eric, kudos to Eric Holmes for just interviewing so many people. He does just as much, if not more interviews than I do on a given week. Bruce Purkey, what are you doing, huh? What are you doing other than having a full-time job, raising a family, and having a mortgage over your head?
He's out of my pocket while I sleep and putting them in the
gosh.
freezer to make me think I got Alzheimer's, which I would absolutely believe.
Bruce Purkey, you need to do 20 interviews a week like Eric Holmes, okay? We demand, and instead of
He does 20 movies a week. He's fine.
I know he's fine. And he's also the most astute of all of us three. He's very. Just check out CinemAddicts, the CinemAddicts. It's very insightful for Bruce Purkey, and you're gonna hear Bruce Purkey.
How's everyone doing out there? I have another week worth of movies to bring to you. Actually, I have 2 screeners, 1 complete TV season, and I've got a very odd movie that I'll get at the end. It's not even a full movie. It's like 45 minutes long. Okay, what I've got this week is I've got the River of Grass. I've got The Man Who Saves the World, and I've got The Diplomat Season 3, and then I've got a little oddity known as Guzu. I'll give you the whole title later. Okay, let's get into it. Let's not a lot of chit-chat. We're not going to have a lot of dilly-dallying. We'll leave that for Eric and Greg, and they'll talk about, I don't know, doing karaoke and making hot sauces and making barbecue and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to talk about movies here. That's right. If I'm going to get stuck in an attic all week and get to come down for 35 or 40 minutes, I'm going to talk about movies. Okay, first up, I've got River of Grass, directed by Sasha Wortzel. And it's a documentary, and it is loosely based, somewhat based, on a very famous environmental book written by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who is an icon of environmentalism, specifically around the Florida Everglades because of her famous book, River of Grass. Now, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was 108 when she died, and she died relatively recently in the thousands. She was born very early in the 1900s, as you might guess by the basic math there. And you would think, once again, this is going to be just a documentation of her life, and it really isn't. This is much more of a free form, almost a documentary essay, poem, tone piece than it is a straightforward documentary. And it also divides up its time between Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and a current day activist, Native American activist, who is in the area of the Everglades and working towards preservation and rejuvenation of the Everglades, and that is Betty Osceola. She does prayer walks and various other things to try to continue to try to keep the Everglades healthy or get it back to its original health. And that is kind of your two main characters here. And it bounces back and forth between them because, of course, with Marjorie's footage, it is the newest footage they have is some film footage, interview footage of her from, before she died, obviously. I think the footage was taken in the early thousands, late 90s. And she was pretty aged at that point, but still really sharp and feisty. The classic feisty, cantankerous great grandma type of lady. Seems like would have been a really interesting person to know. So what it ends up being like I said, sort of a, why are the Everglades important? What do they provide the environment? How are they crucial to the health of Florida's ecosystem? Also, once again, how it's a flowing waterway, and that's the idea of River of Grass, how it's had a spiritual and, vital important role in various cultures who've lived in the area, and then how, quote, modern man has tried to rein it in and tried to, put canals in there and, get levees, do all these things to rein in that whole, sprawling area to allow for more, of course, building of land and building of airports and building of houses and whatever they want to do that, of course, ends up destroying the ecosystem of the area in a lot of ways. And it does show eventually how a lot of those efforts have, of course, hurt not only the ecosystem of the Everglades, but the ecosystem of the entire Florida Basin area in a lot of ways. Florida Basin, Florida Peninsula, I guess it'd be. And how it's, just even the sea around there is quite impacted by the lack of this huge flowing water kind of filtration system that you get with the Everglades if it's working in its full capacity, if it's not reined in and cut up and levied and all that stuff by humans. So all that stuff falls on my ears in a very sympathetic way. I'm sympathetic to all those things, and I'm very much proponent of trying to not let this stuff occur anymore in the Everglades. That being said, is this a great documentary? Well, not really. It's an okay documentary. I think if you're going to enjoy this documentary, the way you're going to enjoy it best is you're going to, in some ways, follow the tone and the mood of what Betty Osceola is doing in current days, which is taking these prayer walks around these areas and trying to not only inform people of kind of the history and the cultural and the almost religious importance of the Everglades and what they provide, but as well as that, if you can go in that kind of attitude with this movie, you can just literally and figuratively kind of just flow with it. You can just enjoy the tone and the scenery and the information you're getting. But if you're looking for, like I said, a pretty incisive and detailed, interesting look of the life of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, you're going to just touch on the edges and get some insights, but it doesn't ever go too deep. And the same thing for Betty Osceola. It doesn't ever go too deep with her as well. And there's some other people around the edges of that we get introduced to, but they kind of become your two main figures. And I wanted to know more about both of them that's for me why I didn't hit as much. I didn't want the tone poem as much as I wanted. I wanted to get to know these two women, two women that would seem, if you just looked at them, like to be wildly different people as far as their upbringing and their place in life and culturally and economically. A lot of things about the two of them are very different, but they both come to the same point in their life, whereas they are both looking at the Everglades and finding kind of their cause, the cause of their life. And that is the most interesting thing to me. And I think that's the thing that the movie didn't ever fully deep dive into. And I think that was a shame. How will I rate? There's not much else to say about River of Grass. If you're interested in the subject, you'll find enough interesting here. If you're not, you're probably not going to be swayed too deeply by it as well. If I were to rate it, I'd probably rate it a mild recommend at 3 stars. I mean, I'm almost tempted to tip to 2.5 stars, but I think there's enough good stuff here to recommend it very, very lightly. And that is River of Grass by Sasha Wortzel. Next up, I have the documentary. I know I had a lot of documentaries this week. This was a weird week for movies. There was probably 5 or 6 different screeners in there. One of them just didn't show up, and it was something about Scorsese. And there's a couple other ones which I couldn't do. They weren't for me, so I'm not even going to talk about them. I'll let the guys maybe talk about them. But the other documentary that I did do was called The Man Who Saves the World, ? Directed by Gabe Polsky. And this is something. This documentary is really something. Now, you go to documentaries for a lot of different things, learn about something you've never known about before, really go deep dive on a person, like a biography. But sometimes you get these documentaries that are just about really unique oddballs in the world that you never maybe would have encountered if you didn't have a documentary. And ones that kind of come to mind for me that do that are things like Project Grizzly. If you've never seen Project Grizzly, it's about this guy who wants to create a suit that will allow a person to survive a grizzly attack. And essentially it ends up becoming like this almost deep sea diving outfit, which is so unwieldy that it's comical, but yet he's trying to make it strong enough to, survive a grizzly attack. Fantastic documentary about the super oddball making that thing. Another one I thought about was American Movie, which is about these two guys just in the middle of nowhere trying to make their horror movie and kind of the misadventures they have. And once again, it's just about these two really interesting, odd human beings in the world that you would not have encountered most likely would not have encountered if the documentary didn't exist. And in a sense, I think it's doing a great thing that only documentaries can do. And it's elevating the everyday person to the status of being important enough for an entire movie. And I can't think of almost anything else that does that, other than maybe a book, of course. But the fact that you get this documentary movie that'll take this person and just make them this really interesting person that you never would have encountered in your life any other way. So The Man Who Saves the World is one of those movies. Now, the filmmaker, once again, he will comment, he'll do some voiceover, and he's not the most skilled voiceover guy in the world. In fact, he's not even the most skilled cameraman in the world, because during a ton of this movie, I would be like watching like, dude, just tilt your camera up a little bit, because he'd be filming our main subject here. And instead of getting the whole person's face, you'd get like the person's chest and shirt and then the bottom of their face. And I'd be like, you're not even framing them in the frame. And it gave it a charm to it, because the filmmaker himself is a little bit, scruffy around the edges. But it didn't matter, because he knew he had a subject that was gold, that his subject was so weird and so unique that it had to be documented, even if the documentation itself wasn't the slickest or best produced. I guess the subject of the documentation was worth it. So who is the subject? The subject is Reverend Patrick McCullum. Now, I have no idea who this person is, but if you were to listen to Patrick himself, he would tell you he's done just about everything, to the point that I started thinking of other movies, like fictional movies, like Forrest Gump or Zelig, or these movies where you have these figures who are seemingly nobodies, but according to the fictional movie, they've encountered everything from presidents to rock stars to all these things in life. Well, Patrick McCollum is one of those kind of guys. He just looks like a guy, like about my age, maybe a little, he's probably about 65 or, he's probably 65. You know, just a middle-aged dude, doesn't look remarkable really in any way. Yet he will tell you that he's had near-death experiences, that he's, you know, met spiritual leaders around the world, that he's, you know, been a kung fu master. He's been he'll start listing all of these things he's done. And, you know, you see the filmmaker, he's also like incredulous about this guy. And the important thing about it is, and the really interesting thing about it is, nearly everything that the filmmaker looks into seems to check out. And when those things start to check out, it lets the really preposterous basic subject of this movie become slightly conceivable. And it makes you start to doubt reality almost, because you're thinking like, well, if all those other things about this guy were true, is this other thing true? Even though you don't really believe it, but maybe you do? And what is this other thing? Well, the whole idea is that supposedly Reverend Patrick McCollum was at this conference in India, this conference for like gurus and like spiritual leaders of the world. And, you know, most of them just look like various kind of, I don't know, spiritual healing charlatan types, and, you know, the standard gurus you would think about, you know, long hair, flowing robes, or maybe not long hair, but flowing robes, and, you know, stones and on giant gaudy necklaces. And somehow they've got their own, you know, cockamamie version of their own religion, maybe a lot of new age kind of stuff going on, all that kind of stuff, right? Well, supposedly Patrick's at that thing, and a bunch of leaders from the Amazonian area, you know, different tribes from Amazonia, different peoples, see him, and he fits a prophecy. He fits the prophecy of the person, this man, this white man with all these various characteristics that he has, that Patrick has. He fits that, and they think that he is the person that is supposed to unite all of the peoples of the Amazonian basin, which is a very, very large area, and supposed to save the basin from, you know, the destruction that's currently going on. So obviously, if you know anything about that world down there, the Amazonian basin is, you know, the whole river area there is being decimated by logging and various other kinds of, once again, we're environmentalism again here, various kinds of development. And a lot of the indigenous peoples down there are, of course, getting pushed out, murdered, just their lives are being destroyed. And the idea that all these different disparate groups could come together and reclaim that land and bring it and, you know, allow it to survive would be huge. Partly because if that whole rainforest area gets destroyed, I mean, it is like they talked about it before. It's like the lungs of the world. It helps regulate the, you know, the weather systems of the world. It helps do a ton of things. And if it's gone, we're going to have a very, very big ecological, you know, blight and disaster on the world. So that's the basis. He is supposed to do this. And then essentially the filmmaker follows him on his kind of meager, feeble, stumbling efforts to act as this guru, act as this almost savior for a huge area of a continent. This seemingly nobody. Who is this guy? And you just follow him and watch him and his infectious energy and strange, almost Don Quixote-esque, and they even talk about that, Don Quixote-esque tilting at windmills that this guy does, but he just never gives up. And that is the key of this movie. So a few things that happen in this movie that I won't tell you whether they are real or not, but he claims to be great friends with Jane Goodall, famous anthropologist or naturalist who, you know, did a lot of stuff with primates and gorillas and so on, and in, you know, obviously over in Africa. He is maybe obsessed with mocha frappuccinos. He maybe has made out of scratch his own violin without any training that is somehow a spiritual instrument of, universal unity. He might have had some encounter with aliens and Roswell, possibly. He might have made a house that he constructed himself out of just scraps of things with no knowledge of construction code and or techniques. He might, like, I keep going on and on and on. This is a crazy journey, very fascinating. Now, I would say the one detriment to this movie is because it is a true documentary, it doesn't try to force a conclusion, force a nice wrap up that you might want narratively in something like this, because like reality, especially when you're involving like prophecies and gurus, there may or may not be the resolution that they envision, but this is not a movie where that is really the point. So you need to go into it thinking like, I am going into this to really just discover a truly unique, interesting human who is definitely living his life 100%. You know, and just think about all the people you meet in the world who are just doing like whatever, the bare minimum. I'm thinking about myself. I think about, most people would probably think this like, hey, I'm doing okay in my life, but I'm not doing everything I could have ever imagined. This guy seems to do anything he imagines, he does it. He may not do it in a great way. He may not do it successfully, but he's going to do it. He wants to build a house. He's going to build a house, you know, that kind of a thing. So in that sense, if you encounter it as an incredibly interesting line of character study of a real person, I think it's highly successful. I'm going to go 4.5 on this movie. I think it is a pretty excellent documentary. I think it's one of those that people that like documentaries are going to discover and really be like, oh my gosh, who is this insane person? I won't tell you if this person is or isn't still alive yet, but I would say go out and look into it and you can find out for yourself. Pretty great movie. Keep an eye out for it. The Man Who Saves the World, ? Okay, on TV this week, I know I get screeners once in a while for Netflix stuff. And the weird thing about Netflix is they'll have screeners on and available for way too far in advance. So the Diplomat season 3 was available, I don't know, like a month and a half ago. So I watched it and then I saw it wasn't getting released until now. So I couldn't review it. So hopefully my memory is still pretty decent on this. If you've watched any of the other Diplomat seasons, you will know the basic concept is that you've got Ambassador Kate Weiler, played by Kerry Russell. Kerry Russell was great in The Americans. She's been in a ton of things. She's really come into her own, I think, in the last 15 years or so as a pretty great actor, mostly for TV kind of productions, but she's doing really, really good work there. She plays an ambassador. She's the American ambassador in England in all the seasons. And she's married to Hal Weiler. So she's Kate, he's Hal. Hal is played by Rufus Sewell. You probably know him from a bunch of things. Also in here, you've got Allison Janney as the vice president. And you've got Rory Kinnear, who you probably have seen in British productions. He plays a ton. He's like the prime minister, I believe, all 3 seasons. And Bradley Whitford is the vice president's husband. So he's like the second husband? You know, there's a what do they call it? The the president's wife, because it's only had male presidents so far, is the first lady. And I guess the second lady would be the vice president's wife. Well, since he's the vice president's husband, he's the second man. I don't know how it works. Anyway, this season is going to give you a lot of what you either liked or didn't like about the other seasons. So the basic way this movie works, or this series works, is you've got Kate as this very overqualified ambassador in England. She is somebody who has been in like special forces kind of stuff. She's super highly into the international intelligence kind of scene. In fact, she met Rufus, her husband Hal. She met Hal doing those kind of activities. And in a way, they both have acted as diplomats, like very high-level diplomats, for a long time. In fact, I guess the balance of their relationship is always pulling between who is the more dominant figure and his kind of ego having to battle with the fact that she, in a lot of times, is more adept and more, assertive in the world than he is. and how their relationship is always on the brink of failing or working or failing or working, and how there's always intrigue going on. The whole series revolves around that kind of dynamic. The interesting thing about season 3 is, so throughout season 1 and 2, there's always some sort of a, spy kind of stuff going on, where stuff's going on between England and America, and Kate's kind of in the middle of it. And there's always a little bit of back office intrigue and wheeling and dealing. So you kind of get this kind of like a West Wing meets sort of spy thriller-ish sort of stuff, but it leans more on the intrigue and less on the thriller, but it has always a little bit of thriller elements. And when you got to the end of season 2, once again, this is going to be a spoiler. If you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, I'm surprised you're listening to a review of Diplomat season 3. Well, it'll be spoiler-free for the season 3. There's a slight spoiler for season 2. Season 2 ends with the president dying, and basically Allison Janney's character is going to become the acting president now. She is the president by default for however many years are left in that term. And everything's thrown into disarray, of course. And at the beginning of this season, we're wondering, because now they're going to look for a new vice president, the hat that's been thrown into the ring is Kate, who is now still the ambassador in England. Is Kate going to become the new vice president? And will her husband be able to handle that ego hit? Or will he become the vice president because, he's got his own, cachet in that world. So that is kind of your basic setup. You'll find that answer out very quickly in the first couple episodes. And then the rest of the season becomes how does a relationship either survive or not survive the new dynamic of one of them being possibly the vice president, and just whatever intrigue is going on for this season, which is pretty good. I know there's a whole bunch of satellite characters which have been around for 3 seasons. So if you like the characters and you like the dynamic of the first 2 seasons, I think you're going to enjoy this one just as well. It's got its own kind of set of stakes, like I said, because based on now one of them being the vice president of the United States, which of course is pretty high stakes. There, of course, is some sort of a crisis going on with England and ongoing kind of problems between them and the British government. And then I think the Bradley Whitford character as the kind of long-suffering sidekick to his much more successful wife, and how his ego deals with that, is a great kind of special sauce in this season, because he really didn't have a part in the other seasons that I remember. But he has a big part in this season, is how it's just interesting to see, because you have essentially 2 couples, who have powerful women and powerful men in them, but how the men who may or may not be in the side seat relatively, deal with their egos, and how they deal with not being seen as the most powerful part of that couple. So that dynamic is really fun and interesting to watch throughout the season. Once again, this isn't going to change the world. It isn't the most action-packed series. If you like shows more along the lines of West Wing, but a little more overly dramatized. I mean, West Wing, I think, was trying to be a little more, it wasn't really realistic, but I think it was trying to be slightly more realistic. This is definitely not very realistic, I don't think. I think it's trying to lean a little into the thriller-esque elements. But if you like that kind of style, I think you'll have a good time with this. I would say it's probably 3.5 for this season. Once again, the seasons aren't overly long. I didn't look it up how many episodes, probably 7 or 8, which has become the standard these days, which I really appreciate. But even British shows, even less sometimes. I think this is American production, even though it takes place mostly in Britain. If you get an actual British TV show, a lot of times they're only about 5 episodes or maybe 6, and I love that because it's just super streamlined. Either way, 3.5 for the Diplomat season 3. I would say if you haven't dipped into the Diplomat at all, go ahead and start with season 1 and see what you think. Once again, I think Kerry Russell continues to do fantastic work, and I'm happy she hasn't been sucked up into, the Marvel universe or something as, not as a superhero, but as one of their handlers or something. I'm glad that hasn't happened. She is doing her own thing, and I guess carving out her own little corner of the political thriller universe, I guess, is what she's done between this and The Americans. She was fantastic in The Americans as well. Okay, Diplomat season 3, 3.5. The last thing I have for you. So, if I review or talk about a real weirdo, slightly older movie, you can think probably 20% of the time it's something I just stumbled across myself. And probably the other 80% of the time, it's something that Joseph Bridges brought to the table. Because nearly every day, Joseph Bridges posts about some really crazy weirdo movie he's seen. And one thing I love about what he finds is he has no problem if it's, some TV movie oddity. It could be, a lot of times it's a short movie. So it's a kind of movie that doesn't get recognized as a movie, a film, because it's only, 35 minutes long, and it was part of some, Spanish horror anthology in the mid-70s or something strange like that. But the fact that he unearths these things and brings them to the table, a lot of interesting oddities have been found that way. So thank you, Joseph. You are doing yeoman's work. Also, he sent me a bunch of new stickers, which I have not put on my new journal yet. So I'm going to post that picture of that probably on Facebook or something. I will get a whole bunch of new stickers on my like my new journal here, and thanks again for sending those off. What did he discover this week, or what did I watch that he discovered this week? It is Guzu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. This is from 1986, by the way, Japanese production. Guzu, The Thing Forsaken by God, Part 1, directed by Kazuo Komizo. What else has Kazuo Komizo directed? I guess he's most famous for Entrails of a Virgin and Guts of a Virgin. I don't know if that's two versions of the same movie or two different movies. They both don't sound very wholesome. I can say that much. This movie is its own kind of weird, wholesome-ish movie. I'm just going to say Guzu from now on instead of the whole title. Although I will say one thing. I went to look up the trivia for this on IMDb. The only trivia that it has for the whole movie, which is, by the way, only about 42 minutes long. The only trivia it has is that, as far as anyone knows, there is no part 2. So this is, once again, I love it when a filmmaker is so brash as to be like, I'm making this little low-budget, crazy horror movie, and I'm going to call it Part 1 because I am so cool. I'm going to make a bunch of these, and like no one cared, and then it just never happened. So anyway, what is Guzu? The way that I think Joseph had some kind of a quick kind of way to describe it, and he said something about it being a combination of Hausu and The Thing, Carpenter's The Thing, and I think that was a real good way to think of it. I think that's a good thumbnail for anyone who knows those two movies. You'll get a picture of it. Hausu, on the one hand, is the super weirdo cult movie from Japan. I think also from the 80s, maybe late 70s. And what's really notable about that movie, other than its straight up bonkersness, is that its look is pretty low budget and pretty lo-fi. Like it looks like the kind of almost a hazy videotape made for TV production. And this movie, Guzu, has a very similar look to it. Now, I don't know if that's just because it's just terrible transfers out there. I mean, I think I saw it on YouTube, kind of looked around for it. There's probably been some kind of an upgraded Blu-ray or something version of this eventually been put out. But as far as I know, most of them look like this kind of like, I don't know, sixth generation, VCR, videotape, copy of a copy. So it just looks hazy and blurry and not the best quality. So know what you're getting into. But also to me, that fits with the charm of these kind of like, you're in a videotape store, video store somewhere, and you just find this weird title that's like not even an hour long. And it has this really lurid cover, probably, some weird hand-painted cover. And you rent it and you just get this thing that looks like it was made in a backyard of somebody, and it's just grimy and weird, and it has a charm to me, being that. What is the story of Guzu? Basic idea, kind of like Hausu. You got a bunch of schoolgirl kind of age girls. I don't know, they're all about, you can't really tell, 16 to 19, probably in 16 to 18. And they're all going to this place to stay with, there's this one woman that runs it. What are they even going to that place for? I don't even remember. It's one of those things where you forget the whole plot. They're going there, and they're going to stay at this house, and the house is run by this scientist lady, mad scientist apparently, and all she says is, you can't go into this one room in the basement, it's locked, don't go there. And she says, later I'll show you the science I do, and it'll be fascinating. And the girls are like, great, cool. And the rest of the movie is, them boringly walking around the grounds of this pretty ordinary looking house. And you discover very quickly that there's some kind of a creature. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing, because if you enjoy these kind of weirdo Japanese horror movies, you just need to know that there's a lot of rubber monster work in here. There's a lot of tentacles, but it never gets into, it's like you think this is one of those movies that could get into the sexually depraved tentacle porn kind of stuff. It never does that. It is weirdly wholesome in the fact that there's no nudity whatsoever in here, but there is a strange kind of leering quality to it. I get the feeling that the people who really made this really liked the idea of the tentacles and the young girls, but they kept it relatively chaste. Now, as far as the gore side of things goes, the tentacle rubber monster thing that has something to do with this place does kill various members of our group here, and there are some pretty good cheapo horror effects, and I did enjoy that quite a bit, where you have heads being ripped off and other things happening, and it's pretty fun if you like that kind of cheapo horror. I did. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Also, I was telling on Facebook, I was telling Joseph, it reminded me a little bit too of an older horror movie. A couple of things. It reminded me of this movie called Island of Terror, it's all very similar to a Hammer movie, but it wasn't Hammer, but it did have Peter Cushing in it. Island of Terror was about these kind of weird, almost look like turtle creatures with these long, like snake-like necks, but they would suck the bone marrow out of people or something. That was from like the 60s. That was a weird one. If you like this, you might enjoy that. It also reminded me a little bit of an episode of Space 1999, one of my favorite sci-fi series of all time from the 70s. It had 2 seasons. Second season was terrible. First season was fantastic. The first season had an episode called Dragon's Domain, which involved a weird tentacle sort of creature that inhabited a spaceship, a derelict spaceship that was discovered by our heroes. And people would get sucked into it and then spit out as like steaming skeletons. And it scared me when I was like, 6 years old, or whenever I watched that, 7 years old. Those two things are kind of reference points for this. Guzu, the Thing Forsaken by God, Part 1. Like I said, 45 minutes. If you're into weird rubber monster creature meets Japanese schoolgirls in the 80s, with a strange subplot of mirrors. Mirrors are somehow a portal for the creature. I don't understand that at all. There's no vampire aspect to it, I don't think, but whatever. If you're into that, then this movie is something you might want to check out. Look on YouTube, search it out, and you'll probably find it pretty easily. I would probably give this thing, it's not great. The quality's not great. I would probably, is it a 3-star banger? What would I rate this thing? I think I'll probably go 3.5 stars. I had a pretty good time with this, but I definitely know it's not a great movie, but I had a good time watching it. So I don't know what to tell you guys. Don't blame me if you hate it, because you could very easily hate it. That's Guzu, the thing. I just like to keep saying it. Guzu, the Thing Forsaken by God, Part 1. All right, that is all I've got for this week. Hopefully I gave you something interesting to look at. I would say for me, the real weirdo discovery of the week, other than Guzu, is The Man Who Saves the World. That is something definitely to keep your eyes peeled for. All right, guys, I am out for this week. We have some interesting stuff coming this next week. We may have Shelby Oaks. I think Greg has already seen it, and we may or may not get it and do a full-on review next week, but we'll see. If y'all know Shelby Oaks is the movie made by YouTube, probably the biggest movie reviewer on YouTube, Chris Stuckman. All right, guys, I'm out.